women's body count doesn't undermine our worth. A note to men, our worth is not wrapped up in the mileage on our vajayjays. No. A note to women's, worth is subjective. You may not think so. Like, no, from your perspective, it doesn't affect who you are, and that's fair, right? But when from the perspective of a guy and what he's looking for in women, it absolutely does undermine your worth. You need to realize you don't get to decide how other people value you. How you value yourself and how other people value you will not always align. In fact, they will often misalign. You need to accept that just because you don't see a problem in something doesn't mean that the people you're trying to get with won't see a problem with it. And if your recourse is to complain, oh, well, he shouldn't see a problem with it. Well, there you go. That could be applied both ways. All the standards you have for men, what if men responded with, well, you shouldn't have those standards? Well, I want a guy who owns his own house. Well, you shouldn't have those standards because most guys don't own their own house. Well, I want a man that'll at least work to protect and provide for me. Well, what if I want to just sit around at home all day? You should lower your standards to match me. Like, that's literally what this is. Like, when women pull BS like this, they're pretty much saying guys shouldn't be allowed to have standards. And the funny thing is, guys are starting to ignore them. Guys just don't care anymore. Like, nah, you don't meet my standards. I don't care about your opinion. You can scream all you want. It's not going to change anything. So we're nearing the end of a second decade of the new millennium. Yeah, this article is a few years old. And we're still forced to have conversations about a woman's prerogative? Oh, to be sexually open and adventurous sans degradation. Why? Well, you fell for the trick, okay? The whole women's sexual liberation thing was a trick. The only one that benefits from it are men that only view women as sex objects. Because now these men get to have sex with all the women they want with no commitment or any strings attached. It's a paradise for them. And women, you're the ones that pay the price in the long run. So damaging ideas about sex and female purity remain the antithesis of sex positivity, and I'm over it. Women are not objects. Women have agency. Women are autonomous beings with a right to experience pleasure at whatever frequency they wish. I mean, I agree, but men have the right to not want to associate with women who do that. This goes both ways. You can do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anyone else, but you can't expect to be able to force everyone else to accept you. That's where you trip up. That's where you're always going to fail. So having multiple sexual partners is not a crime against womanhood. It only challenges a false idea of femininity perpetuated by patriarchal systems of feminine oppression. Yeah, that's why women, the less oppressed they are, the more miserable they are. You notice that? And stop likening our bodies to banal things that are designed to depreciate due to prolonged use. Our vajayjays do not function that way. You think so? One more time for the misogynists and incels in the back. Stop ignoring a woman's personhood in lieu of misogynistic propaganda about her sexual viability and worthiness because of how many men she slept with. No, you don't get to decide this, okay? Just like how men don't get to decide what standards you have for men, you don't get to decide what standards men have for you. You want to live the life you want? Go right ahead. No one's going to stop you. But there will be consequences for it. You will forever close certain doors to you if you do this. That's what this is about. They are allergic to consequences. They want to be able to do whatever they want without consequences. That is 100% of the issue they have. And they think that if they throw enough tantrums, it's going to make the consequences go away. No, if anything, you might be able to hide from reality for a little while, but the longer you hide from reality, the worse it is when reality finds you. When men use social media to spread misogyny, kind of like how you're using it to spread misandry right now. Earlier this week, while minding my own business on Beyonce's internet, shout out to Zuva, I came across a post made by a guy on Fakebook. He took the time to construct his makeshift soapbox to air his fragile masculinity, masquerading as gospel about a woman's worth. You may want to look in the mirror before you talk that shit. I mean, just saying. To summarize, this man purports that a woman's worth is rendered null and void if she has more than 2 sexual partners. He further cried outrage if other men that he's acquainted with have had sex with her in the past, that she's now worthless. No self-respecting man would have made her a wife. It's not the men that are going to suffer for this, you know. Just think about that. The comment section of this erroneous mess of a post was full of women setting him straight, myself included. I was shocked to see this sort of message from this person on my friends list because he always carried himself as an open-minded individual. Well, you're just showing how close-minded you are right now. While I find it disappointing, it was a typical snuggle culture propaganda. I've come to associate a specific type of man, the fragile, insecure man. Oh, you mean like the type of fragility and insecurity that comes with demanding that other people not have standards? Because that's what this is. Men are saying we have standards, and women are crying, but that's illegal. You shouldn't have standards. Same women, by the way, have astronomically high standards for men. The patriarchal society has so thoroughly warped and demonized women's sexuality that we now have so much work to do in unspooling centuries of intricate brainwashing and sexual propaganda. Well, no, believe me. Nobody loves women's sexual liberation more than men. At least the type of man that you're always attacking, funny enough. But those are going to be the only type of man you can get now. Like, dude, if you're going around sleeping with every man under the sun, you'll only be able to get a man as a friend with benefits that's doing the same thing. But no, these women think, no, I want to live the life of a hoe, but have that 30-year-old straight-laced Christian man come be a Captain Save-A-Ho for me when I'm ready to settle down. Not going to work that way. Maybe you can get with one of the Chads or Tyrones you've been screwing around with when they're ready to settle down. That's the best you can hope for. Now, the genesis of policing on women's sexual expression can be traced back to religion. Failing to realize that, you belong to the far left religion where patriarchy is the original sin. Now, the patriarchal systems that sought to snuff out the divine, feminine, and sensual nature of women's continue to flourish. Where's that happening now, outside of your side? It's the far left that's trying to censor at least attractive women being sexualized. It's your side that's the Puritans now. Religion's got nothing to do with it. Your anger is kind of misplaced there. And then attacking men, like, dude, in general, the only type of men who wouldn't want this are the men that maybe in the past would have specifically wanted to wife you up until they saw what you became. Now it's, yeah, sure, let's be friends with benefits. So it's also a birthplace of snuggle culture, the idea of women being the property of their fathers, then transferred to their husbands. Chastity and purity are prerequisites for finding a husband. And the fact that that has gone away is probably why the divorce rate is so high right now. And during the biblical times, girls are married off at around 12 or 13. So it's a lot easier to remain chaste when you exist in an oppressive culture where you are a prized mare sold off to the highest bidder after your first menstrual cycle. But I digress. Well, you have to choose, man. I mean, that type of world exists far in the past at this point. But you don't seem to be too happy with this one either. You've gotten what you wanted, and you're doing nothing but complaining. These harmful ideologies, ratified by every new generation of clergy and taught in households to young boys frequently by mothers who have internalized misogyny. You described current year, except the opposite. The harmful ideology of feminazism ratified by every new generation of clergy in college, taught in households to young boys and girls by fathers who have internalized misandry. You really don't see that you are the thing you're complaining about. These boys grow up to be teenagers where the alphas among them engage in disgusting locker room talk, plot to ruin the reputation of teenage girls after a clumsy night of awful sex, and learn propaganda like no means yes. You really think that's happening in current year, huh? Well, once again, this isn't my problem. You're the ones that are going to be miserable. The power of sensual women has threatened the male ego for centuries. When a woman is comfortable in her skin, free from false narratives about her natural sensuality, she is a formidable and fearsome being to behold. Yeah, this is just a lie that they're telling themselves. Now, notice that unattractive, overweight women seem to say this a lot. And to be fair, you are powerful. You're a powerful weapon. Yeah, when my eyes see that, they burn. When then these same women, when they see actually attractive women walking around being sensual, they cry about it. Like they not only are they trying to censor and destroy like the 2D space, like video games, anime, etc. They go after real life women. They just the past few years, how many attractive female models have they put out of work with their crying? Like all the booth babes at E3, the grid girls at Formula One, multiple cheerleaders for many sports. They are putting attractive women who are comfortable in their sexuality, their natural sensuality. You are putting them out of work. You are destroying them because they make you feel uncomfortable because you will never look as good. So quit trying to project and pretend like it's us guys that are doing this. Now, the early religious clerics sought to control women's by extension the creative life force made during sex, says the side that's now trying to control men by demanding that men not have standards. Yeah. While still creating a false dichotomy that men can satiate their sexual desires if they so please and even expect no demand a chaste and virtuous women's by religious standards. This is another thing that's kind of hilariously been flipped on its head. These women that are the village bicycle, they expect a traditional man. Like they're not happy with any if any of the guys that they have one night stands with, they don't want to marry them. Oh no, that's those guys are just for fun. Like no, I want a real traditional man to wife me up. Sorry. If you want a traditional man, you're only going to get that if you're a traditional woman. And you've already made it clear you're not one. So men have no issues purchasing and driving a used car. Really? I've heard men using the analogy that no one likes tarnished goods. I've seen whammons use the same analogy. The dogma stated that my body first belonged to God as a temple for him to dwell in, and having sex before marriage would force him out. God wanted me to remain pure so he can live within me, and the only sex he sanctioned occurred in the marriage bed. Fuck that. I don't believe in marriage as a life choice for me. Well, there you go. So what are you complaining about then? If you don't believe in marriage as a life choice for you, does anything in this article apply to you anymore? I mean, clearly you're mad that no one wants to wife you up because of your lifestyle. You wouldn't even be writing this article if you were happy just going around having casual sex. I don't think that you're in any danger of stopping that anytime soon. And certainly did not remain chaste, obviously. Virginity is a social and religious construct with damaging messages about a woman's self-worth. A literal biological truth is a social and religious construct. Yeah. I'm getting used to that from this side by now. I cannot reiterate this enough, but women's are not sexual objects. You give the impression that you're living your life as one. We are not cars. Our value does not depreciate with use, nor do we accrue mileage like a car. Women's do not exist for the sole purpose of pleasing men. With an attitude like that, this is why you're never going to have a man. I mean, would you accept this attitude from a man? That the only time he wanted anything to do with you is when he wanted something from you, And when you want something from him, he just brush you off. It's like, go away, bitch. I don't exist to please you. Handle your own shit. You wouldn't like a man like that, would you? Yet you're perfectly fine acting that way towards men. Interesting. So yet men have no issues with purchasing cars that have been ridden by other people and will use the same analogy to devalue a woman's ridiculous. Let's actually take that analogy further then. Men have no issues riding a woman who has been ridden by other people. Men have no issues having sex with a woman who's not a virgin. Men have no issues having sex with a woman with a high body count, but they're not going to marry her. They have no intention of making her their one and only forever woman. Like, nobody buys a used car with the intention of, oh, this is going to be my car for life. No, they run that car into the ground and replace it with a new used car as soon as it breaks down. And that's how they're going to treat you. And your complaint is that's how they're treating you. They're just going to trade you in for a newer model. It's bizarre to keep count of sexual partners. I don't see the point in marking notches on a belt, but to each their own. When you say that, you're basically saying you lost count at a couple hundred. I've written about the truth behind sex and vajayjay elasticity because I was sick of seeing memes comparing sexually open whammies to the image of throwing hot dogs down hallways. Oh, she probably saw a Terrence Pop video and got so triggered by it. Oh, this is perfect. Hey, Pop, your videos are working, man. This is great. So no matter how much of a pounding of a JJ takes from multiple penises, it will not diminish elasticity. It's one argument these types of men have about body count that we're used up and worn out. Actually, most guys, it's more the mental thing and the inability to couple anymore, but to each their own. I have no idea how many men I've had sex with, but I do know the number is probably a 3-figured one, probably 4. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter to you, but you don't get to decide what matters to somebody else. The position of my worth as a human being is not my vagina. And I agree, it's not. Your position of worth as a human being isn't. But your position of worth as a potential marriage partner is. And just get over it. It's the truth. It's factual. In the past, when men I've dated asked me how many guys I've been with, my quickfire response was none of your fucking business. And that's the end of the relationship right there. The knowledge is not necessary and has no bearing on my present. If you're decent, you may get in. But asking me this question, you're outing yourself as one of them, one of those men with a fragile ego. No, they just want to avoid whammons with too much baggage. This article is kind of revealing enough. So delicate, he feels threatened that perhaps your sex game might not hold up to my level of experience. That's a personal problem. And this is the woman that's complaining that she's single. Maybe stop to think why. So let's recap. A women's doesn't exist for the express purpose of giving men pleasure, catering to them, or meeting their every need. You're right. I just hope you're happy being single, because you're not going to be in a happy relationship with that attitude. Women's have agency, bodily autonomy, and freedom to express themselves as sexual beings just like men. Our worth as women's does not have physical presence in our vajayjays. And I agree with that too. But your worth as life partners does. No matter how many men and women sleep with, she's still worthy because she is a living soul. Now, this is absolute bullshit, by the way. Nobody has inherent value. Nobody. All value is subjective. There's no such thing as objective value. The only reason anything has value is because one or more people subjectively assign that thing value. You do not have value by default just because you exist. This is something that people that know they have no value say to themselves to make themselves feel better. A woman's worth is wrapped up in who she is as a person. Part of what you are as a person is how loose you are. You know that, right? Not her reputation, because it stems from the opinions of people, but it's on her character. Women's are the cradle of life. Are you low-key admitting that the only thing you're good for is making babies? Because that's what that sounded like. It always goes back to that. Like every time men try to talk back, women are like, well, good luck having babies without us. But you just kind of said, you're not going to have kids anyway. So how's that an argument? Our very nature is to be loving, nurturing, caring, and giving. And that's why women that Minecraft their own kids at a much higher rate than men. Such loving, nurturing, caring, and giving beings. I saw a story posted on Locals earlier, actually, about a woman's that Minecrafted her children because her ex-husband was about to get custody of one of them. And she just did it to spite him. Loving, nurturing, caring, and giving. That we have the innate gift to take nothing and turn it into something. We can do it all. Well, apparently you can't when men start competing on your playing fields, can you? That we are the right-brained thinkers blessed of this double dose of creative energy. We are the embodiment of divine feminine sensuality in everything we do. Now, this is really just what's the best way to put it? Validation. That's what it is. So other losers read this for validation. That we are the womb man. Do not disrespect and oppress us with your fragile bullshit. We have had enough. I acknowledge the war on women's, but enough is enough. If men bothered to show up to the gender war, it would be over in like snap of a finger. There'd be no. Just look at what happens when men show up to women's sports. No competition. How do you think it would go if men as a gender took the gender war seriously? Man, you'd be going right back to that Middle Ages patriarchal society you've just been reading about real quick.